It's that time of year. That's right. Silly season. So, since it's silly season, I thought, get silly with it. Or whatever they say. What? What do you mean it's not like a literal... Oh, this is awkward. Why do they actually call it silly season? I don't know. I've never really looked into it. Just kind of have gone with the flow ever since. But yes, silly season actually means free agency, essentially, in the racing world. From about May to August is like the season. I guess that's why it's called a season. The silly season, that's when we see free agents go sign with other teams. Now, obviously, they don't start with those other teams immediately because we're in the middle of a season. It's not like the NBA, NFL, MLB, where you have a portion of the offseason specifically designated to the silly season where drivers and whatever can go sign elsewhere. Anywho, that's what we're in right now. We have an update on some teams, their thoughts, drivers, their status, and whatnot. So Jordan Bianchi posted an article this morning kind of updating some of the biggest figures. Said that this year is not really a big year for silly seasons. The last few years we've seen Kyle Busch go to RCR, Brad Keselowski go to what's now RFK. We've seen some big names, some Cup Series champions, hot prospects, whatever you want to call it. We've seen some big moves, whereas this season, it doesn't look like there will be too many huge, earth-shattering moves, but we still got some things to talk about. So let's kind of break this down, go through this. The first things first. Hendrick Motorsports, Team Penske, Joe Gibbs Racing, and 2311 Racing locked up. They're done. They're good to go on their lineup. Their lineup this year, it's essentially their lineup next year. Speaking of Joe Gibbs Racing, while that's assumed, Denny Hamlin technically is in a contract year, so we do have to talk about him, but it's pretty straightforward. He's more than likely staying at Joe Gibbs Racing. He's been there his entire Cup Series career. They just added Progressive as a sponsor. Sports Clips has long supported him. I know they lost Mavis and they lost FedEx. Those were two really big ones to lose, and that was the majority of the schedule, but Progressive picked up half the schedule. So, assuming they get the funding there, Denny Hamlin's staying at Joe Gibbs Racing. Don't see any other reason for him to go elsewhere unless, of course, it was his own team, 2311 Racing. Which, speaking of 2311 Racing, as I said, same thing. Their lineup is locked up for 2026, but they do have another driver on contract, kind of. Like, he's not a 2311 full-time driver like Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and Riley Herbst. But this driver does have a developmental deal, I believe it's called, with 2311. Corey Heim, he has been shredding up the Truck Series for 3 straight years now. How he doesn't have a Cup ride at this point, I don't know. It's mind-blowing. It truly is. Gotta be money, I guess. But anywho, Corey Heim, he's been this hot prospect. As I said, he's been killing it in the trucks, but somehow here we are in 2025 and he has 15 or 16 truck wins in 3 years. And he's sitting here once again without a Cup ride. And it looks like it's going to be that way next year. But while Heim will likely be in the Cup full-time someday, it won't be next year. Instead, he'll continue to race full-time outside of Cup with spot Cup starts mixed in, while waiting for an opportunity to materialize. Currently, that opportunity isn't there, and then it just goes on to say that, the full-time status, and that earliest he'll be in there is 2027. Obviously, Tyler Reddick, unless he wants to go somewhere else, I guess, he's locked in. 2311 has no reason to let him walk. He made the championship 4 last year. He's won a bunch of races with them. He is a great driver. Bubba Wallace, he's won races with 2311. He's been a little bit up and down. Sure, missed the playoffs last year, but he is their guy. He was the original driver at 2311. I think that's a big deal to them. And then Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst is there. He's struggled this year. So far, he is currently losing the Rookie of the Year battle, which I believe is a battle for 32nd in points. He has struggled a lot. he does have a lot of funding. We got to factor that in. It's a big part of NASCAR. It's a big part of racing. He does have funding behind him. That significantly helps his cause. And I'm assuming he has at least a 2-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal, but the third year is an option, something like that. Point being, it seems like this driver lineup is going to stay the same next year. And unfortunately for Corey Heim, he's going to either have to stay in trucks an extra year or go to Xfinity somewhere, and there's some beef between Ty Gibbs and Corey Heim, so I guess he won't be in the Gibbs Xfinity car. But yeah, Corey Heim, really talented driver, but is once again going to be stuck below the Cup Series level. But he will continue to get some Cup Series starts in the 2311 fourth part-time car, as he has gotten earlier this year at Kansas. I believe he's going to be there in Nashville this weekend, so he's still going to get Cup experience, but he will not be fighting for the Cup Series championship. Then we got Kaulig Racing. Kaulig Racing, oh my goodness. With AJ Allmendinger is like their guy. And for him, he knows that, but he's also like very loyal to Kaulig, and whatever they tell him to do, he does. Hey, AJ, we need you to run part-time Cup this year, full-time Xfinity. We're good to go. Hey, actually, next year, AJ, we're going to have you go full-time Cup, part-time Xfinity. We're good to go. Actually, AJ, we're going to flip it back. You're going to go part-time Cup again and back to full-time Xfinity. Okay, good to go. Okay, AJ, just one more change, one more time. 2025, you're going to go back to part-time Xfinity. You're going to be full-time Cup again next year. A lot of back and forth. Full-time Xfinity, full-time Cup. I'm dizzy, you know? But they've committed to him. Well, I can't say that because they've committed to him this whole time. They've committed to him being in Cup next year. Chris Wright said he is 100% going to be in the Kaulig Racing number 16 Cup car next year. The dizziness ends. AJ Allmendinger gets to be in the Cup Series. Obviously, AJ Allmendinger has been killing it this year. He's only 13 points out of the playoffs. He's got 4 or 5 top 10s, like 3 of them are on mile and a half. That other one is at Bristol, so it's not like he's just racking up super speedway and road course numbers like we usually think of with him. Like, they have been killing it. AJ Allmendinger has been killing it on every style of track this year. So with how well he's performing, there's no reason to ship him back to Xfinity. He's killing it, you know? He's got you guys with a chance to make the playoffs. It's a really big deal. So hopefully they don't send him out to Road America to qualify him for an Xfinity race again when he's in the midst of a potential playoff spot on the line. And then we come to the big dilemma. For the second straight year, Trackhouse Racing has 3 drivers, 2 seats. Last year, of course, if you remember, they had Daniel Suarez he was on a contract year. You had Shane van Gisbergen, who's full-time in Xfinity, part-time in Cup, trying to adapt to the ovals. And then you had Zane Smith, a young, talented driver who's trying to break through, get into the Cup Series, and potentially go to the Trackhouse A team. He was at Spire last year in the Cup Series. Trackhouse ultimately made their decision. Daniel Suarez wanted Atlanta in February, so that essentially locked him in for 2025. SVG did good enough in the Xfinity Series in Trackhouse's eyes that they decided to sign him, and they released Zane Smith, who is now at Front Row Motorsports. Well, as I said, second straight year, 3 drivers, 2 seats. So, how are they going to narrow this down for the second straight year? They really enjoy putting themselves in this situation. So, Daniel Suarez, for the second straight year, is in a contract year. His contract expires at the end of the season. They can opt to obviously re-sign him. They can opt to let him walk. I guess those are the only 2 options, but they could maybe sign him and lease him. Let's not get too complicated here. Daniel Suarez, his contract's up at the end of the year. So he's either staying at Trackhouse or he's not. Let's not complicate it. Shane van Gisbergen and Connor Zilisch, that is our new player into this mix. According to this article, it says that they both have terms remaining on their respective contracts. And then it, of course, mentions that Suarez's contract is up at the end of the season. So Trackhouse could theoretically just simply say, all right, we got 2 guys on contract. We got 1 guy who's not going to be on contract at the end of the year. Let's just simplify this and let him walk, and then we don't have to rip up a contract that's beyond this year. Well, that could get complicated, though, because now we got to break down these three guys. We got Daniel Suarez, who, kind of like what I said with Bubba Wallace, he was like the founding guy. He was the guy that they picked to start this team. He's won multiple races with them. He's made the playoffs in both of those seasons. Then you've got Shane van Gisbergen. Shane van Gisbergen's in a very unique situation in NASCAR, and that is prior to 2023, he had never raced a stock car on an oval. His first start was that IRP truck race, which is just so random looking back on it. But after that, he committed to NASCAR, moved to the United States of America to try to learn NASCAR racing. Obviously, the road courses, he's done about what we expected. Obviously the Chicago thing happened, but then last year wins 3 Xfinity races on the road courses. He almost wins Watkins Glen in the Cup Series race, puts it on pole at the Charlotte Roval. That's expected from a road course guy. In fact, that was probably a factor to why Trackhouse signed him this year. With how much the charters are worth and the charter value, there's like a value of the charter. The higher you finish up in points, the higher the charter is valued. So essentially, Trackhouse is kind of betting on SVG to win a road course this year, get into the playoffs, and that charter value is at worst 16th, whereas if he doesn't win a race, he's probably sitting in the 30s or the back half of the 20s in the points, and that charter value significantly goes down. So you got that aspect from SVG where it's been a struggle this year on the ovals. There's no other way to put it. Now, the last few weeks have actually been pretty good for him. A top 20 at Kansas, a top 15 at Charlotte. If he can continue that, that may, make Trackhouse's decision easy. If he's running extremely well on the ovals, if he starts outperforming Suarez on the ovals, then it's like very obvious, but we're not quite to that point. And then we got Connor Zilisch. Connor Zilisch is a wild card in a sense. He's not even 19 years old. He's 18 years old right now, ladies and gentlemen. Connor Zilisch is going to be, or he is viewed as the next big thing in NASCAR. He's one of the hottest prospects right now. Everything he does under a magnifying glass because he is an incredible talent, whatever car you put him in. He's already won an Xfinity race. He's won 2 Xfinity races in his career, but he's won one this year at the Circuit of the Americas. Grew up, doing karting and all that. So the road, kind of similar to SVG, the road success is not a surprise, but it's been his oval progress that's actually been really impressive. He's 6th in the points, and that's with missing a race after an injury at Talladega. He's got 3 oval top 10s. He's got another oval top 5 somewhere in there. He's led 171 laps on the season. He is in JRM equipment. That is top tier equipment, but he's performing pretty well. He's beating Carson Kvapil, Sammy Smith. He's doing a pretty darn good job. But on the flip side, we've seen this before. Young, hot prospect, everyone's looking at this guy as the next big thing. What kind of success is he going to have in the Cup Series? How many championships is this guy going to win? And then they get rushed up too quickly. They fall out. They don't have that success that everyone thought they were going to have prior to their Cup career. So if you're Trackhouse, you got to look at the situation in all these different angles. Like Zilisch, he's actually improved on the ovals, but another year of development could be really good for him. But then in the back of your head, you're thinking, oh, wait, what if someone poaches him? What if someone, a big team, a Hendrick, a Penske, a Gibbs, they suddenly make room for him because he's that big of a prospect. We don't want to lose him to them. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if the thought's popping in my head, it's probably popping in their head. I'm a dummy, so that's saying something. So if you commit to Zilisch, staying in the Xfinity Series another year, developing more, learning more on the ovals, potentially get a championship run together. Heck, he could put a championship run together this year. Well, that situates it. Then you just re-sign Suarez to another 1-year deal, keep SVG in there, and bada bing, bada boom. You're done. That's it. But, as I said, this is a complicated process. If you want to pull Zilisch up now, if some other team is offering him a Cup ride and you don't want to let him go and you have to offer him a Cup ride right now, you got to make a difficult choice between SVG and Suarez. Right now, it's really not the prettiest battle. As I said, SVG has struggled on the ovals a lot, but the last 3 weeks have been much better. need to see a little bit more out of him, I would say, if you're Trackhouse. But at the same time, it's his first year in the Cup Series on ovals. Like, maybe they give him a little bit of a longer leash. Daniel Suarez started out the year hot. Runner-up at Vegas, had a few top 10 runs in there, and even when, he's got a couple of DNFs, but some of them weren't his fault. Running top 10 in Phoenix, gets taken out by a lapped car. I think it was a similar situation at Atlanta. Running in the top 10, gets clipped by someone because it's Atlanta, it's a super speedway. Outside of that, though, since whenever, let's call it March, Daniel Suarez, oh my, it's been rough. He's all the way back to 30th in points. He's 49 points ahead of SVG. He's got to start picking it up. If Trackhouse truly wants to elevate Zilisch to the Cup Series next year, Suarez has got to pick it up. No other way of putting it. Obviously, I think a win puts a lot of questions to bed. I would say the same for SVG. If SVG wins a road course, let's say Suarez wins a race, wherever it may be, road course, oval, whatever, I think if those guys are both in the playoffs, I think Trackhouse might say, okay, let's run this back another year, see what happens. But Suarez got to pick it up, I would say. And then the article also points out that Suarez, he's well-liked within Trackhouse. He has the sponsorship. When you are comparing SVG and Suarez is much more proven on the ovals, much better results, a much more complete driver on the ovals, has won on an oval. Like, you got to factor that into. Like, there's so many, as I said, guys, I'm probably missing factors here, but there's 1,000 different ways you could look at this between each of these three drivers and how you compare them. Yeah, so Trackhouse has got a decision to make. They have not yet started contemplating it, according to this article. I don't know when they start contemplating it. Maybe they wait till July after a few road courses have gone through. And if SVG goes out, dominates Mexico, dominates Sonoma, dominates Chicago, and just racks up 3 wins right there, puts a bunch of playoff points on the board, then they're going to say, okay, well, keep him. But if he does what he did at Coda, which is run really well in the first half, but then kind of fades and just runs 6th to 8th, doesn't really do anything exceptional, then they might say, oh, okay, that's not what we were anticipating. And then they keep Suarez. So, as I said, a lot of decisions to be made here. So, we spent the majority of this video talking about Trackhouse. Well, there is another category. I was a little surprised by this, but other names to watch listed alphabetically: Eric Almirola, Corey LaJoie, Jesse Love, Sam Mayer, Chandler Smith. What a combination of names. Now, Jesse Love, I circle that name right there because I would say he's a very hot prospect right now. He's been killing it in the Xfinity Series the last 2 years. He's only going to get better as time goes on. He's made a few Cup starts this year. He's scheduled to make more Cup starts. I think he could be a hot prospect that gets picked up by someone. I don't know who, but someone. So I circle that name. The other ones, though, that is quite, as I said, quite the combination of names. Chandler Smith did really well in Xfinity last year. Couldn't find a ride, but the last second went to front row in the Truck Series, and he's been killing it in the Truck Series. Already has a couple of wins this year, has been running really well, leading laps. He could potentially get a promotion. I don't know where he'd go, but hey, he's a name out there. Sam Mayer's kind of a wild card, I would say, just because he's run well in Xfinity. He's won a ton of races. He's been in the Xfinity Series 4 or 5 years now, but we'll see. We'll see. As I said, he's had a lot of Xfinity success, but we haven't really seen his name around Cup Series talks a lot. So, as I said, we'll see. And then the other two, Eric Almirola. I don't know. He retired from the Cup Series at the end of 2021 or 2022 maybe. He retired 1 year and then he unretired, kind of like Tom Brady, and then he came back and then he retired again. And then he unretired and is part-time with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. He's won a bunch of races, so he's still got, he can still wheel it. But is anyone going to go out of their way to sign Eric Almirola? Maybe a lower tier team, maybe? I'm not trying to say Eric Almirola is bad, but you got to factor in he's a little bit older. He's been out of the Cup Series for a couple of years. How hot of a prospect is that? That sounds so mean, but do you understand my point? And Corey LaJoie. Corey LaJoie, you got to remember he was at Spire for the longest time. You know, he had his flashes, some really good runs at the super speedways and whatnot. And then he got to drive the 9 for Hendrick to sub for Chase Elliott after Elliott got suspended. And since then, the end of his Spire tenure did not go well. He ends up getting traded midseason to Rick Ware Racing. And then he's not let go, but he's not given a full-time ride. He runs part-time in the 0-1 car and does whatever there. And so I don't know where he could go if we're talking Cup Series, but who knows? And then another factor to factor in that was not mentioned in this article. What about the lawsuits? We have, how many different angles have we talked about today, ladies and gentlemen? From Trackhouse to Kaulig, like we have talked about, there's so much to talk about with silly season, even though this is not even a busy silly season apparently, but here we are, recording time says 23 minutes up here, still going away at the crazy prospects of what could happen. Well, okay, what about the lawsuits? What if 2311 gets their charters taken away? Now their drivers are free to leave. Now, I don't think they would, but hey, it's a possibility. You never know. If the sponsors start pulling out, they may have to run as open cars, you know? And then, I guess that also goes for Front Row Motorsports too. Like, let's just add some more chaos to it. And then there's a completely separate lawsuit with Legacy Motor Club suing Rick Ware Racing. Well, what happens if Legacy Motor Club gets rewarded a charter? Okay, now they have 3 cars. That's an open car. Who goes there? Honestly, if you're asking me, if Legacy opens a 3rd full-time car, and if I'm Toyota and I'm Denny Hamlin, I would lease Corey Heim to that 3rd car. But that's just me. We don't know that's going to happen. My brain hurts. That was a lot. I really didn't think that was going to be that much. I thought it was going to be like 5 to 8 minutes on the Zilisch SVG Suarez thing and like 2 minutes everything else. But then I remembered the other wacky scenarios that we haven't really thought about yet. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Thanks for watching this video. We got Nashville this weekend. It's NASCAR Night in America. Let's have a fun one.